Thank you so much for having me today. I'm extending Marie's regards and apologies. They have to deal with an emergency, thank you, sir. Emergency leadership meeting to figure out what they are going to do with 46,000 people on their campus. So she sends her regards and apologies, and I'm hoping to represent her here today to talk about the Wolfpack's way to HR agility. Woohoo! So let me tell you a little bit about NC State. So North Carolina State University was founded in 1887. They are a leading public research university, especially in veterinary medicine, but they work in all different disciplines. They have 36,000 graduate and undergraduate students and a huge campus. I mean, the campus has a golf course and a fish pond and a 5-star JW hotel. So it's a massive operation in Raleigh, North Carolina. They have 34 university research centers and 12 institutes, and alumni are from anything from Nobel Prize winners to politicians, academics, and athletes. So why the Wolfpack? So as a university, they compete in 23 intercollegiate varsity sports, including baseball and basketball and football. And in 1921, one disgruntled fan actually said, "Wow, the football team played like an unruly pack of wolves." Since then, they're called the Wolfpack. And they play in Carter Finley Stadium, PNC Arena, Doak Field, and Reynolds Coliseum, among others. So let me tell you a bit about the HR department at NC State. So they really focus on striving for excellence, and they really want to make a difference, and they see themselves as enablers of the mission of the university, and they support 10,000 academic and administrative staff. You know, typically when you think about a university, you think about jobs like professors and so on and so forth, all the faculty. But they have a wide range of different jobs and different roles. So anything from straw field operators to gardeners to nuclear engineers. So it's very dynamic, it's very diverse. And it also comes with a rigid job structure. And we're going to talk about that a bit further down the road, because it's impacting the way we can actually run an agile transformation or agile change across the university. Because you can't just go up there and say, okay, we're going to have agile coaches now as part of our job structure. That has to go through the government, through North Carolina and state, and it's a different story. But they really embrace diversity and inclusion, and they were awarded or named among the top 3 best employers for diversity in North Carolina last year. So Marie Williams is running the HR department. She's the Associate Vice Chancellor and CHRO at NC State. And she's also the chair of Coupa HR. So Coupa is the leading HR organization for HR professionals in the higher ed space, so colleges, universities. They have about 30,000 HR members, and she's chairing that starting this year. And she's also part or a fellow at the American Council on Education. She's originally from England. She would have presented with a lovely British accent. I can't do that, unfortunately. But what I really want to talk about is the fact that Marie is really the kind of leader you want to have in an agile transformation. You know, throughout the past 1.5 days, we talked a lot about the role of the leaders. How do we get leaders on board? And she is really a person who walks the talks. She says, okay, we want this is the right thing for us to do, but I have to lead the way. So when you see all the certifications she has, she is a certified Scrum Master, certified Agile Leader, certified Agile HR Practitioner, and certified Agile HR Coach. Because she says, I'm the first one in the course. If I want my people to become Scrum Masters or Agile Leaders or practitioners, I have to take that course myself. I have to know it too. I can't just expect my people to know it. So she's truly walking the talk and leading the way in this transformation. So the motto of NC State is, we need to think and do the extraordinary to face those big challenges. And that was really the motto for us in the transformation as well. Think and do the extraordinary. No matter what challenge we have to make sure to embrace that challenge and make the best out of it. So let me tell you a bit about the Agile journey. The Agile journey was really tied into the more strategic plan of the HR organization at NC State. And the focus for the strategic plan was really on people and culture. How do we create that inclusive culture where we thrive on that diversity of thought? How do we align our HR approach, our HR practices, our HR themes to the people and culture that we want to have? We want to focus on continuous improvement. How do we do things better? It's not just about rolling out new practices. It's really about, okay, how do we take this to the next level? How can we continuously improve, continuously get better, and get ourselves into that growth mindset? But also, how do we do professional development, not just for the organization, not just for our 10,000 people out there, but also for us within HR. Then about HR metrics and workforce analytics. So they were quite good with data, getting data, having metrics, but how do we take that to the next level? How do we get into predictive analytics that we can really say, okay, what are we going to do with that data? Are we sure we're measuring the right things for the right reasons? And what are we going to do with that? How is that going to inform us? And then also around the HR strategy and operations where they've just changed or are in the process of changing their organizational structure to fit that continuous improvement, that agile mindset. So that's the setting that we had for our transformation. We also talked a lot around what are your top priorities? What do you want to achieve? We all know just saying we want to be agile, well, fair enough, but why? What are we really hoping to achieve? And obviously there are a lot of different things that we were hoping to get out of that transformation, but here is the prioritized list. So the main focus was really around empowerment. How do we empower people? How do we empower HR? How do we empower our employees to be in charge? Not just when it comes to their work, but also how do we empower them to take charge of their own learning, of their own growth? So how do we embed that within everything we do? Employee engagement, massive point. How do we make that happen? They have some people who have been with the university for 35 years. How do we keep up that engagement? How do we make sure to capitalize on that and build on that? The collaboration was a huge point because the HR department has 300 people. 100 are in the centralized HR department, creating practices and processes to be rolled out across the organization, across the university, and 200 HR people are within the different colleges and institutes and help them on the ground, so your HR business partners. Creativity was a main point, and the cultural change that goes with it. Because that was very important for us to understand. This is a cultural change. This is about the mindset change. We can change as many practices as we want to. If we don't change the mindset, we can't really fully leverage this. So what did we do? We started the journey last year, at the beginning of last year, and we talked a lot around what are we going to really focus on? How are we going to approach that? Because the problem was that we did not have any agile capabilities within the organization. They had 0 agile coaches or scrum master in the organization, so we couldn't leverage the potential that was already there. And we could also not get funding or not get the job structures changed that we could actually get experienced coaches in. So that's the situation that we had, and we knew we have to focus on the culture. That's on the mindset. That's our main point. So we embarked on a journey that is different from what we would probably say is an ideal agile journey, but we had to make it fit for what works. We started with the main thing, getting the HR leadership team into one room, get them trained, get them all aligned. So we spent 2 days. First thing we did, spent 2 days with the HR leadership team to get them up to speed, to align what we want to do, to explain the whole approach, to agree on our journey backlog. So here you see a couple of pictures from the team there. And I thought it was amazing because it really changed the dynamic of the whole transformation to say we start at the top. This is not, we are telling you guys to do it, but we are not going to do it. This was really, we are leading the way. We are doing this. The second point was that they did a lot of online training for about 80 plus people. And then we had the annual HR conference with 160 participants where we talked about the Agile mindset. So the whole one-day conference was dedicated to the Agile mindset. What does that mean for us at NC State? How do we align that with our creative values? How do we align that with our strategic themes? So it was really a working session to make sure that everyone is on the same page there. Then the next step was we rolled out the different Kanban boards in the centralized HR department. The way we did it was that we trained a couple of people to do it, and they sort of a train-the-trainer approach, but we left it up to the teams to decide whether or not they're going to do it. And we left it up to them to decide what that board is going to look like. So as you can imagine, you saw very different boards. And what was amazing, not every single team embraced it, but most of them did. And the ones who did were really in. So they said, OK, we're going to give this a try. This sounds really cool. And you can see they work with WIP limits and things like that. And every board looked different. But we could really see very quickly how much what happened when they started measuring lead times and cycle times, especially in the recruiting process, how much that changed and how much that visibility and measuring the data really helped them to embrace it. And when we went back a couple of months later and talked to the people, say, well, what was the experience like? We had a few people who said, hey, I'm actually doing that at home with my kids now. So, and when you get to that point, you know, OK, this is in. They understand it. They see the value of this. So this is really cool. And especially the leaders loved it as well, because obviously, yes, they kind of knew what people were doing, but now they could actually see it. So I know I'm teaching or preaching to the converted here. So you get that stuff, but it was amazing to see within NC State. Then we would have loved to have Scrum teams or Agile teams roll out throughout the HR teams. We couldn't do that for different reasons, but we still wanted to experiment with that. So we said, OK, let's take one of the strategic initiatives and say, let's do a sprint, an iteration week, where we have an interdisciplinary team come together. So we have people from the colleges, we have people from HR, central HR, decentralized HR, to collaborate around employee engagement and recognition program, so that they could experiment with Agile ways of working, but at the same time delivering value for the organization. So we worked with them for a week, and we did a lot of different stuff from a rapid feedback session where we got a lot of employees in to really understand what is recognition for them. So we had the voice of the customer in the room. We looked at personas, and especially persona stuff was really interesting because very quickly we realized that for Andrea, the academic, we have a lot of reward and recognition and appreciation programs. But for service Steve, we had nothing. So we could really embark on that journey and say, OK, what are we going to do? How are we going to bridge that gap? And we had stakeholders in twice during that week, once on the Wednesday morning, once on the Friday, to present and get approval for the new approach. And as you can imagine, people were quite nervous about saying, OK, we don't know what the team is going to produce, but they're going to go in front of faculty and stakeholders to present it. So they really had to trust that process to make that work. And we are still in the experimentation phase of different parts that came out of that program. But it was amazing for people to see how much can you actually get done when you work in this way. So the next step was that we presented at a Coupa event. So Coupa is the HR organization for colleges and higher education. And we presented in front of 300 leaders and talked about our journey. And we did a marshmallow game with 300 people. You've all done it, so you know how much fun it is. And it was amazing to see how people embrace the concepts as well, and that they said, hey, this is really cool. And when we talk about universities embracing that, it's something unique. Because hey, they have different constructs, they have different restrictions than other organizations or other industries, but they are embracing this and they are changing the way they are doing things within the organization or within the institutes. So then the next part was that the team did another, they call it a sprint, so like an iteration week, where they worked on another initiative, which was around background checks and faculty recruitment. And they found out that it takes them quite a long time to hire faculty, but they identified 200 touch points in that recruiting process. So no wonder it took them quite a while to get there. So they worked on that to use that, streamline the whole process to make that work. And then we did a training of over 90 HR people to get them up to speed on the whole Agile concepts. What does that mean for HR? And obviously, when we talk about bringing agility to HR, we always have to talk about that duality of HR as well. Are we talking about HR as an organization? So how do we apply all those practices within the HR department, but then also around the HR practices and HR functions? So how do we do recruiting and performance management and career pathing with an Agile mindset? So we trained and got close to 100 people certified in Agile HR. And then towards the end of the year, the part of the team embarked on another sprint or a series of sprints where they worked on paid parental leave. So they are just rolling that out or are in the process of rolling that out. So last year, we really focused on a learning and experimentation phase. And obviously, that Agile journey is not finished. And we are also building the capabilities in-house. So we had a couple of HR folks already going on Scrum Master courses, collaborating with experienced Scrum Masters to really get up to speed so that they can help the organization while we work on the job structure, structural things to make sure that we can get experienced Scrum Masters and Agile coaches into the door so that they can fully embrace Agile. So what are some of the things that happened? We could really improve team performance and also job satisfaction within the HR department. We got great feedback from the colleges as well because they felt a different dynamic within HR. They intensified the interactions with the stakeholders. So the stakeholders were on board with the different initiatives, which was really cool. And says that it's really helping them embracing their creative core values and HR culture. So the lessons that they say that they've learned is really around engage your leaders in the Agile transformation. So they have to walk the talk. They have to embrace this. You have to be brave to experiment. And you have to trust the process. So this is something that Marie always puts a focus on, because you can imagine what the discussions were like when we said, okay, you have to present whatever the team produces to the stakeholders. She was a bit nervous about that. So it's really about trusting that process as well, train people, but then really inspire people. Get them excited about what we are trying to do and share those stories. So what is next for NC State? So they'll definitely keep the momentum going. We don't want to lose speed here. They are currently launching a new HR concierge center. So they'll be applying a lot of, especially lean thinking and lean practices to that. We'll focus on agile techniques, especially for the COE, Center of Excellence, within HR. And they want to run more sprints, but then also start experimenting with fully fledged agile teams, interdisciplinary teams that are going to work together. And of course, they want to continue leading HR agility in higher ed. So with that, thank you so much, and go Pack.